I joined Ice and Fire Theatre about 5 or 6 years ago, and yeah, and Ice and Fire have been going for the last 11-12 years, and was initially started up by a lady called Sonia Linden, who's a playwright, and she had been working with a group of refugees from an organisation which is now called Freedom from Torture, and she'd been doing a creative writing project with these refugees, and from that she developed her own play. I have before me the most remarkable document from a young lady, given to me by a young lady from Rwanda. Short and snappy title, but it was a great success, that play, and launched the, really launched the success of Ice and Fire Theatre from that point. And then my good colleague Christine Bacon, our artistic director, took over the helm about 6 years ago. And Christine came from Australia and initiated our Actors for Human Rights outreach project, where we have collected a whole number of testimonies from various different communities and groups and people that are collected together around various issues. And we take those testimonies and put them together in verbatim plays, and they go on like a rolling tour all around the country, and we perform to around sort of 10,000 plus people a year with those projects. And we try to take scripts about, whether it's about asylum or poverty or what other ones, sort of old age or various other welfare-based issues, social justice issues, and we take them around the country as performed readings, so that they're very light touch performances, but it means that we can take them to sort of pubs and clubs and church halls and places where theatre wouldn't normally go. So alongside our artistic programme, where we make sort of full-scale plays, and alongside all the education work we do and the work with charities and things that we do, we've got this sort of testimonial project running there as well. And but the work I do is largely on the, I kind of not work really on the artistic programme, but also sort of obviously, get involved with everything and work a lot on the participation and education side as well.
Thank you.
Our main mantra, our main sort of, mission and vision is all about being a theatre company that articulates human rights concerns. And I think sort of too often human rights are things that people think about, that it happens elsewhere, it happens over there in another part of the world, and that's where human rights, perpetrators live, and people don't do bad things. But actually, there are myriad human rights abuses in the UK, and a lot of them just screw down to poverty. And you speak to an organisation like Amnesty or the British Institute for Human Rights, and they will tell you that it's poverty is the gateway for people receiving and claiming their human rights and claiming the dignity and equality that they deserve. And it's that barrier of economic deprivation that stops people from being, from fully participating as a citizen in their society. So it's all the work on poverty is very much sort of is really for us central to our campaigning for better human rights in the UK. Yeah, we'd had a long-running involvement with a funder called Trust for London, who are just an amazing charity. They're sort of a real sort of old Victorian philanthropic charity, and their real mission is to try to tell people and campaign and lobby about poverty and conditions for poor people in London. And and they're really interested in nuancing the whole argument, so that it's not just about, so that poverty isn't just defined about here are these poor people over here and here are the rich people over there, but they're interested in sort of all the different sort of segments and groups, and about how many number of families are in work poverty, and how many families sort of are are working on multiple jobs but are still in poverty, and what are the poverty traps and what are the poverty traps for young people. So they do lots of sort of investigation and research work. And we had done a number of projects for Trust for London in the past, and had made a piece called Broke for them, which was about just about people living in sort of really dire poverty. And then we transformed that testimonial play into a series of videos, which sort of was used for various sort of events, and it was used sort of for their lobbying and campaigning as well as being an artistic product. And then they commissioned us to make a piece about the impact of the cuts. First, this was the time when the first sort of wave of cuts was being announced by George Osborne, and we went, and this is the sort of process that we normally undertake. We go and find people in organisations who are likely to be able to refer us or to introduce us to their clients. You know, we don't just sort of barrel up to people in the street and go, hi, tell me about how poor you are, but it's more a very sort of careful set of relationship building processes, so that say for example I went to work with there's a thing called the Camden Society, which looks after a lot of people with mental and physical disabilities, and they work in North London. And oh my God, just heartbreaking, like the amount of people that, you know, were having to be cut from their books because they no longer received support to look after these people and to give them advice and welfare advice and really simple things that a lot of their clients needed, like just help doing the shopping and help to fill in forms. And they were literally having to meet with people on their lunch breaks because they couldn't, you know, they no longer had actually the work time to deal with these caseloads. And so there I met a couple of really amazing identical twins who were you know, absolutely a force of nature, and I interviewed them, and they were transferred, and their stories were built into the piece. But of course, you know, and then had various other referrals, and you know, met other people for that piece as well. Was slightly, it was slightly problematic. We were asked by the Trust for London to advertise really widely for people to advertise for stories. So we put a very short advert in the Evening Standard saying, can we, you know, we would be really interested to hear from people's stories. Can we collect your, you know, would you be interested in telling us your story? And Trust for London as well wanted us to offer a stipend, like an honorarium payment to everybody, and it's £45. It's a nominal amount in some regards, but it's a massive amount, you know, to some people if you're in a really hard economic condition. And it's something that's very sticky. It's very sticky with us, and we have used monetary payments in some forms where we have collected testimonies, because, you know, to just basically pay for people's time, to say, you know, thank you very much, your time is worth something, and we don't want to, you know, we're not taking the piss, this is, you know, we respect and honour your time. But also it becomes, you know, there is a really tricky, sticky thing around it that we've never really ironed out, about how it then becomes quite it becomes transactionary for their time. And it did mean that we were getting a lot of people calling up going, I need to tell you my story because I need that money, and you need to pay me the money, and I'll tell you my story, and I need to pay the money. And of course we can't take everybody's story, and we can't pay everybody the money. So, you know, it wasn't a very good position for the project to begin with. However, that said, you know, for that project, we collected a repository of around 30 plus stories, and you know, it did mean that we were able to get a really diverse, widespread of stories. But actually, and again, this was sort of the flaw of this particular project, was that the commission was too early. The commission should have happened in 2013 and not 2012, because the effects and impacts of the cuts just weren't biting deep enough at that time. So we spoke to a lot of people who were going, I'm really worried that this is going to happen, and this is awful that it's coming down the tracks. But actually, you know, in terms of sort of capturing a slice at the moment of, you know, look everybody, this is what the cuts are doing, fucking bastards, this is what is happening. We had a lot of people talking about their worries, but not actually a lot of people evidencing, you know, the horrible and pernicious impact of these austerity measures. And you know, but there were just, you know, there were some people in really vulnerable and fragile, you know, positions, and you can't spend, I mean, when we interview people, we'd spend a day interviewing them, and you know, we just hang out with them and get to know them. And so, say for example, when I was interviewing the twins, because they also had special needs, I also spent some time with them and getting to know you sessions with their care workers before I then conducted the interview. And then what we normally do is then type up the full transcript, give them back the full transcript and say, what do you think? Let me know what you don't like. Have I missed, you know, what did we get wrong? Is there anything you don't like? And, obviously a lot of the people we interview as well, you know, they're worried, they're frightened. You know, I was speaking to people who'd lost their jobs from councils. I was speaking to people who were in battles with, you know, their local social services or benefits offices, and they didn't want various details to go forward because they were very worried that, you know, that these details would come out. So, you know, we go through a process of anonymisation, etc., you know, if they wish. And it's difficult. You know, you can't spend a day with people and then just go, okay, bye, cheers, thank you, thanks for the story. You know, there's then a very sort of, you know, a process of follow-up and how are you, and are you getting on okay? And of course, you know, we sort of invite people to events, and you know, everybody came along to the premiere of the script, which was really nice. And the twins were just beside themselves, and had their pictures taken with the actresses, and you know, they were just, you know, there are a couple of really amazing young women who've just had the worst time, and we had to, you know, we couldn't. There was lots and lots of stuff we couldn't put in about their situation because they were in such a vulnerable position. But yeah, it's, you know, you build up all these relationships with people, and this is the long problem with this kind of theatre making, is that you're introduced to a set of people and they take you into their world, and you're very privileged to hear their stories and the trust that they have in the situation, and then you can you know, you get to talk to them, and you get to, you know, you hope that the stories will help, and you hope that the stories will have traction, and that that your co-campaigners together. One of the things that really works for our methodology is when we get the people who've given us their testimonies, who've given us their stories, who then come back and stand on a platform with us at events, who then, you know, will stand sort of side by side with their stories. I mean, for some people that is just not possible for various safety, personal reasons, etc., but you know, it's always good for us to maintain those long-term relationships. But in terms, we find that in terms of requests for our verbatim scripts, requests for our testimony scripts, people are much happier to request pieces about asylum and refugees and about other communities who are quite other, that they're quite, you know, and that's not, you know, that sounds like a terrible criticism against some of the most amazing, brilliant campaigners that we work with and that we've done our scripts for and stuff, and it's not. But I just think there is something, you know, campaigning about poverty in this country is slightly sticky for a lot of people, and it's difficult for a lot of people because I suppose how we're all implicated is a lot. You know, it's difficult, isn't it? You know, that there's no, you know, you really have to sort of look your neighbour in the face and say, yeah, I know you live in a more shit way than me, I know your life is shitter than me, but I'm still going to have this, and I'm still going to have my telly, and I'm still going to go on holiday and stuff like that. And I think that's why when we do pieces about poverty, and it never quite has the same pickup as the other human rights stuff work that it does. It's trying to stand with people as much as possible, and you know, and really trying to sort of, if our piece of theatre can dovetail their campaigning and our campaigning as well, then brilliant. Or if they're happy to join our campaign, then all the better. And and I think sort of, you know, hopefully it becomes a coalition of the willing. The more work I do with this, the more it does become more of a coalition by the time we finish the project than a project leader and a set of participants that sits underneath. At least that's sort of what we're always working towards. In many ways, what I want for a piece of theatre is the opposite of what I want for them as human beings. You know, as human beings, I want 3 years later if we were making that piece again now, I'd want to sort of open the door and, you know, and all will be well, and that people will, you know, have money and be able to just do their shopping or go out to the cinema once a week and all the things that make us feel like people. You know, that's what I'd want for them as individuals. But I suppose what we're looking for as a campaigning piece of theatre is we're looking for material that puts people on the spot. You know, we're looking for material that makes, you know, that implicates the audience and that says, all right, you might not be able to do anything about this personally, but, you know, structurally, what are you going to do about it? You know, who are you going to campaign to? Who are you going to lobby to? You know, and you know, I think that political theatre is just tasked with this sort of, if there's not revolution in the streets, then political theatre doesn't, create change. And I know that there are many people who don't think like that, but I think that there are some unnuanced critics of political theatre who think like that, and that's not how we see it at all. We see political theatre as, it works in all of those sorts of micro spreading ways, that the next time you're in the pub and somebody's like off about poverty or benefits or welfare, that you, as somebody who's seen our play, might just go, hang on a minute, no, it's really not like that. It's really not all about that. And did you know that and so that the message spreads, and that's really where we see our sort of, we want to, absolutely, we campaign and we lobby and we try to, as far as possible, work in sometimes quite hostile environments, for people who don't like our message. But it's also about with the audience. Yeah, some of them might be the leftish switched on people. Some of them might be, singing to the choir or preaching. So what is the metaphor? I don't know. You might be preaching to the choir, but on the other hand, I think that choir does need activating, and that choir does need reminding, and that choir needs sort of saying, oh yeah, you're doing a good job in the world, and that you just need to go out there and do more of it. And I think that, that hopefully that by creating a piece that's agitational, that is sort of saying, look, you need to look in the, you need to look and listen to the words of these people. And this is the shit that they face every day, and the tiny small things, the small bits of hope that they all described to me when I was taking those interviews, like tiny things like, I want to be able to go swimming, or I want to be able to buy my son a toy, just shit that, so many of us would just go, yeah, no, fine, just take it for granted, and we do it as peace. And for this, it was like their 2 weekly treat, and it was being taken away, and I just, and I suppose, yeah, it's sort of having people play those thoughts and those circumstances out before an audience, that then makes the audience, think about the way that they vote, or think about the way that they lobby their MP, or think about the way that they talk about their neighbours, and think about the way that they don't get involved in divisive politics, and that they don't get, they don't buy the bullshit line about, it's the poor and the benefit claimants and the welfare claimants that are dragging us down, but actually, they think about the ideological choices that government is making. Every time we do a project, we write and apply for money. We write and apply for money, which means that we have to evidence our work very, very strongly, and that we have to sort of provide qualitative and quantitative data about the kind of people that we meet, and the effects that we have, and the actions that were taken as a result of our work. And maybe that's why it would be difficult to get another piece funded about the cuts, because it's just, we found it really hard to get the same traction with that. And again, because we don't have that core funding, if we were a core funded organisation, we could go, right, well, what do we get? Let's build this into a longer project, because we would have the central funding there in order to make sure that somebody was working on it and monitoring on it. But if it's just a short commission, as soon as the commission money's finished, there's no more, so any follow up that we did afterwards, it was all done off our own time and our own money. So it's but we live to fight another day. I mean, often it's very easy to say we're not making any money off this, because often we're losing money, and often we're we might get, so say for example, I probably, when I'm doing an interview, I'll get paid for the time that I'm interviewing, but the 12 hours it takes me to type up their interview for, I won't get paid for that. So there's a lot of, and that's why but of course artists are expected to work for free, but I mean, I think any artist knows how much that there's a paid slice and the unpaid slice, and and all of this. Do you think Rufus Norris knows that?
Do you think Rufus Norris knows that?
I think he probably does. But there's but it's just, and I know, and I know that and I'm really, really behind, campaigns where that we don't make actors work for free, and I mean, obviously we've got, the people who volunteer for our projects do so because the actors who volunteer for the Acts of Human Rights projects do so because it's part of their contribution. It's their contribution to charity. It's their contribution towards advocacy, in a way that they might not be able to afford a £5 a month or £10 a month. But if they can come and stand on a platform, then and of course there are mixed motives. There are mixed motives with everybody who works in either applied theatre or who work in the charity sector. That we can pick apart altruism is not. There are better people than I who've spent their time picking apart the nature of altruism, but I think I get quite utilitarian about it, in terms of let's always search for best practice, but bugger it, let's also get something done. Let's get something done, let's get something said, and hopefully if you meet eye to eye and you meet the guy who's just come out of prison and points his finger right in your face and tells you what a privileged white girl you are, then it's in that exchange that you go away and you go, right, okay, what do I do better next time? What do I do? What do I do to, I can't change my history, I can't change my skin colour, I can't change, but what can I do about that encounter? But what we ask actors to do in the testimonial projects is not to be. We ask them to sort of stand beside, to deliver the words, but not to over egg it, not to sort of not to but actually to use their training, to use their technical skills, to deliver a message clearly, cleanly, to really give somebody's words presence and volume, and to turn up the dial on the audibility, both technically and metaphorically, but not to pretend that they're living this moment of, this is how I felt when my father raped me, for the, in the case of the twins, this was, we're not asking, I'm not interested in that really, because the twins didn't give me their story for that moment. They gave me their story to talk about how their housing benefit was affected, and everything of course leads up to that moment, but they're not interested in everybody getting, what's that Greek word, spasmago, the whole sort of, putting their fists in and let's have a look at this lovely nasty bit. That's not why they gave the story. They gave the story because they wanted to talk about their housing benefit cap. So we try to, it's a light moment. It's not light as in levity, but it's light as in terms of light characterization. So it's performed readings are quite a craft really, because it's about being in enough to give the audience some sort of flavour, but without flavour. That's a lazy word. I'm sorry, but without. But at the same time, also not in this moment where you can see it's a script. You can see it's a, it's not about. It's not about pretending to be and pretending that you've had those moments in this very sort of short time that you're spending with the audience. And I suppose when we do something like a testimony project like Actors for Human Rights, and the engagement with the audience is very sort of straightforward on a campaigning. It's nakedly campaigning. It's it's nakedly about issue-based stuff. But that sort of relationship, that theatrical transaction is about I am here and you are here. Look at me, I'm looking at you, you're listening to me, and I can feel you out there, and we're all here in this room. And it's about that holding to account, and that's what that relationship is. That's why theatre for that. For that process. But for something like the 9 o'clock slot, where we made this piece about poverty and sort of slightly went Dennis Potter, that was about saying to an audience, and to a generalist theatre audience, to a general theatre audience who maybe haven't come for the political theatre but have come because we've set it in a non-theatre space in a gallery underground somewhere in Shoreditch, and because it's got these interesting people in, and because it's a promenade. But it was about sort of saying to that audience, come in, aha, poverty, now listen. But and it was about, but it was also about, it was about trying to sort of apologies for the wankiness, but it was which I should have done before. But it was about sort of saying, you know, it's people's souls. You know, they're just, you know, they are, you know, they're all amazing, and you just, you know, there's just because, you know, and I think this is the nice way about the way that we work, is that we, you know, we often talk about people's problems in this work that we do over here. Of course, we talk a lot about solutions, but because we're campaigning and because we want to hit people hard, we want to animate people, we want to ignite people. It's, you know, we give people lots of problems over here, and we talk about people and their problems. But actually, over here, we were also talking about, you know, the artistic work that we do, in this sort of in the theatre production stuff that we do. We were talking about people's problems, but we were also talking about their inner lives, and we were talking about, you know, and that's the nice sort of, that's the yin and the yang, I guess, of those sorts of those two different methodologies we're working. And of course, there's lots of slippage between the two, and there are lots of testimonial projects that we do that are a little bit more, that sort of work off the bat a bit. And, you know, there are some sort of the theatre production pieces where it's a bit more straightforward, but, you know, I think sort of that's you know, it's about creating, that live performance. I'm here, you're here, but also I'm, you know, with that live performance where also you can go inside somebody's head, you know, and you don't write them off as their problem. You don't just go homeless man tick, you know, but actually you go homeless man who still thinks about, you know, still dreams and has this, you know, has Peggy Lee running around in his head the whole day as well at the same time, you know, and it's about the way that theatre can take us into those different landscapes, and theatre can, you know, create and drop worlds really, really quickly, and all of that sort of stuff that's brilliant about that live encounter. And of course, it's the contract, isn't it? You know, it's the contract that we all sign when we gather, when we buy our tickets, when we even think about buying our tickets. You know, it's the contract that begins then that we hope to, you know, sort of keep sort of enveloping around people to say, you know, come and enjoy, but at the same time, do something. Now go away and put your money where your mouth is.
Brilliant.